Welcome to the Concrete Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Sauce McKenzie. It's an honor to have my next guest, leader, social entrepreneur, podcast host, and community advocate. James' journey to servant leadership is nothing shorter than amazing. Born in Gary, Indiana, Dr. James W. Dix III knew that he had a call to serving others. Since his journey to and through serving others, in 2016, he founded Urban Family Initiative, which is a social service agency that builds bridges to establishing healthy families. In June 2023, he founded Circle City Driving Academy, which is a driver education academy in Indianapolis, Indiana. In his spare time, James enjoys spending time with his family, serving the needs of others, reading, and helping people to get out the jar so they can read the label. Dr. James Dix, how you doing, sir?
All right. Hey, Sauce, thanks for having me, man. It's always a pleasure to see you and to. I told you before we came on, man. I've been watching you, from afar, man. Just watching how you progress, man, with your show and all the great things that you're doing, man. I know for a long time you've been helping young people in the community, man. So we definitely salute you, man, for what you've been doing, over a course of, man, for as long as I've known you.
Thank you, man. I sincerely appreciate that. More than you know, sometimes I do get off track, like you called me yesterday, and it's always good to have wise, homies that my ears have always receptive to what you're saying. So I've always appreciated compliments from you because I had the utmost respect for you. So that means the world to me, man.
I appreciate that.
So how's the family, first of all?
Man, you know what? Everybody's doing well, man. My youngest son, we just put him on a bus this morning. He's going to a HBCU college, man. So he's going to do that whole East Coast, Howard University, North Carolina A&T. So he doing that. Little James, man, is down at Tuskegee University, man, doing this thing. He's on the Royal Court and, doing this thing. And my oldest son, man, he has his family, and my daughter, man, she has her, her business, man, doing yoga and that kind of stuff. So, man, you know what? I can't complain, man. I mean, I could be in a lot of other different places right now, but I mean, today, man, I feel blessed, man. I feel honored to just be a father and to be able to exist, man. We've seen a lot of things happen, from people who we know, man, who are not here anymore. And so every day you wake up, man, it's a blessing just to be here and to be able to make a difference while you're here.
Amen. And then to be able to see your kids flourish and learn the lessons, that is a wonderful blessing, man. I don't take it for granted. So I wanna let's talk about your upbringing, man. Where'd you grow up with, like, brothers and sisters, and let's talk about Gary and what part of town and how that shaped you to the man you are today.
Yeah, man, I grew up in Gary, Indiana. I grew up on the west side of Indianapolis. I'm sorry, not Indianapolis, but Gary, Glen Park, west side. And, man, I was blessed. I'm not going to say I was fortunate, man, but I was blessed to grow up with both of my parents, mother and father. And then I'm the oldest of three sons. So my father, man, was from the Air Force, and he was very intentional about raising his sons, man. I felt like I was in the military when I was a kid. It was a lot of structure and things of that nature, man. So, and again, any child, man, who grows up in a home, man, where there's structure and a lot of rules, I mean, you feel like, it's not a good thing, man. But when you get older, you figure out that, hey, this stuff, man, helped me more than it hurt me. And so I'm grateful, man, to have grown up in an environment, man, where somebody showed that they cared and they kept their foot in my butt for the most part. Yeah. So it's a blessing, man. My parents are still living. My father's 82, man. My mother's 78, and they're still healthy and they still driving and all that, man. So it's a blessing. I can't complain.
Yeah. So, those that don't know, Glen Park, he was obviously a Lew Wallace Hornet. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, they tore it down,
type
man.
Of
man.
Where'd you go to school at after high school?
You know what? After high school, it's funny, man. I wasn't going to college. I was in ROTC in high school, man, for 4 years. And my goal was to be a Marine. I wanted to be a Marine, man. And so at the last minute, before I started the journey of going to MEPS and all that, man, my mother and father came to me and said, hey, why don't you think about, trying college? And I was like, man, I'm tired of school. And so I ended up doing it, man. I went down to Ball State in Muncie, Indiana. Man, the rest is history. I went down there, man, and I ended up pledging Q my freshman year. What's so crazy is I got to, so we were on quarters, and that's like, 8-week sessions. And I was on quarters, man. I ended up getting like a 3.0 the first quarter, and next quarter, man, I was online for Q. And so, being a Q, man, being a part of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, man, there were times, man, when I didn't know which direction to move, but I could still remember those poems and different things that I learned that helped shape. In addition to, man, growing up in the household I grew up in, that helped me, man, to get back on track. I ended up flunking out of school, man. I ended up flunking out of school and thinking about going back to the Marines, and had a child and all that stuff, man, child support role. And so, I grew up a little bit faster than I want to in terms of having responsibility. But I'm again, now that I look at where I am today, man, I wouldn't take any of those lessons away, because they were monumental in my growth and my development, man.
So let me ask you something, to the young man right now. What was something that got you past that pivotal bridge to where that allowed you to keep going? When you was thinking about letting it go and everything, what motivated you to keep going?
You know what? I have to go back, man, to my foundation. Again, my father, man, he always, when we grew up, man, it was not an easy environment to grow up in. I mean, again, there was a lot of accountability. There was a lot of, man, we got, corporal punishment was a thing back then, and so, if we didn't do what we were supposed to do, man, my father got with us. And in addition to that, man, we had a lot of strong black men, man, who were around. I had uncles, and I had uncles on both my mother and father's side, who used to sit us down, man, and talk to us about, being responsible men and what that looked like. And so, man, I grew up in that. I grew up in that. We didn't really have, we had some people who were off track, man, but the ones who wanted to pour into you, man, they were always around and always saying, hey, let me talk to you, boy. Let me see where your head at. Let me see, if they want to talk to you about girls, or, making sure that you, are responsible when it comes to intercourse, all that stuff, man. I mean, they held us accountable, man. And I think that was important. And so on the flip side, when I went to Ball State, man, again, Omega Psi Phi, man, you learn poems like See It Through. When you're up against the trouble, meet it squarely, face to face, lift your chin, set your shoulders, plant your feet, and take a brace. When it's vain to try and dodge it, do the best that you can do. You may fail, but you may conquer. See it through. Black may be the clouds about you, and your future may seem grim, but don't let your nerve desert you. Keep yourself in fighting trim. When the worst is bound to happen, in spite of all that you can do, running from it will not save you. See it through. Even hope may seem but futile, but with troubles you'll be set. But remember, you are facing just as other men have met. You may fail, but fall still fighting. Don't give up, whatever you do. Eyes front, head high to the finish. See it through. And so poems like that, man, reading books and understanding, man, that I have a purpose greater than just myself. And I think that's what, man, really kept me going. And of course, man, I should have said this first, man, but God has always been, the head of everything that I do, man. And that's been a turning point, man, for my life.
Well, obviously, that was very deep, man. That poem was real. I was listening word for word. It's very, very motivational, just hearing it for the first time. So I can understand how that can impact you at the time. And, with you being a doctor now, it's obvious to say you did finish up. What did you do after college?
Man, after college, I was, so I ended up finishing so after I flunked out of Ball State, I ended up coming home because, again, I had a child at home, a new child, paying child support and all that. And so, I ended up enrolling at IUN, Indiana University Northwest in Gary. And, man, my mother was like, you need a job because child support rolling. And I was like, well, damn, and so, man, different people come to you and be like, well, hey, man, we could put you on here. And I was like, man, I'm trying to keep it clean because I got something else that I'm trying to do. And so my mother sends me down to see her brother, man. His name is Preston Dunner, man. Rest in peace. go see your uncle. And I go down to see him. He sends me down to see this guy. His name is Bo Watson in the city of Gary. And so I go down 11th Avenue to, there was a barn, man, where they had all the garbage trucks and, the gas pumps and all that. So I go down to see him. I got on some slacks and a shirt because I'm saying, hey, man, I'm a college student. I know I'm going to get me an office job. And so I get down there, and the guy says, you Preston's nephew? I'm like, yeah. He was like, well, you see, he said you want to get a job. I said, yeah. He said, you see that truck over there? It was a garbage truck, truck number 32. I never forget. He said, that's going to be your truck. He said, go home. He said, I'm going to give you an hour to go home, change your clothes, and come back. And so the next 5 years, man, I work on a garbage truck and pump gas in city vehicles for the next 5 years, from 1990 to 1995. Oh, and he also said, the only way you're going to be able to keep this job is if you enroll in school. He said, every semester I need to see your grades. I need to see that you enroll. And so, man, when I worked for the city, man, for those 5 years, man, I was in a totally different element from being on a college campus. Man, I was working with guys, man. They had been in the penitentiary for years or whatever, but they would always say to me, young brother, we don't know why you here. They said, we here because we have to be. They said, but you have your whole future here, and you can do better than what you're doing. And so, again, man, it was just, man, it was such a blessing just to have different people, man, saying different things that uplifted me to let me know, man, that I could do a little bit more than what I was doing. And so, man, in 1995, I graduated from IUN, and I built a relationship, man, with the career. And I would tell every young person this, if you're in school, man, build a relationship with the career services department, because they are the ones that can help you to get with these employers when they come and say, hey, we need some students for jobs. And so my first job out of college, man, I worked for Salerno Cookie Company. And so I was a cookie salesman, where I got in my car, man, and went to different grocery stores throughout the Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana area, and I filled shelves with remember them little cookies, man, the little butter cookies you put around your finger. Yeah. Yeah. I was a cookie guy, and so that was the foundation, man, from a professional standpoint, to kind of help me to get to where I am today, man. And so it's like I said, man, things don't happen, man, just because, man. God has our lives commissioned, man. We already, all we gotta do is follow what he set us out to do.
Yeah, I agree. Amen. And listen to that story, I would have never even thought that, but I know being around them older guys, they was dropping so much knowledge to help you get, that was the one thing about Gary, especially at that time. They wanted to make sure you got on track. You know what I mean? So I know that was very, very, very influential in doing what you do. Now, when did you decide to make the move to Indianapolis?
You know what, man? I was working for Methodist Hospital off Fifth Avenue. Actually, I was working at both hospitals because I was in human resources, man. I had gotten a job. I had met somebody when I was working on so after I finished my undergrad, man, I went directly into a master's program in 1998 to 2000. I met somebody who worked at Methodist Hospital. They said, hey, we're looking for a benefits and compensation person. And, man, I'm not a math guy. You know what I mean? I'm more, I like to talk and, but I took the job anyway because I was like, man, I'm trying to get my foot in the door. And so I took the job at Methodist, and I worked there from 1995 to about 98. And, man, my wife and I decided, it's time to relocate, because at the time, my oldest son, who was about, he was probably about, I think he was about in the 6th grade, man, and we started to see the change in Gary, man, in terms of, the mills being impacted and, laying people off, man. And so, if your economic base, which is the steel mills, if they're not functioning fully, then it impacts the school system. It's a trickle-down theory. And so, man, we started to see how the schools had started to change, and we were like, hey, you know what? Every time we go down and visit my two brothers who were in Indianapolis, man, we felt like it was a vacation, bro. And so we were like, why don't we think about Indianapolis? And plus my brothers, they were like, man, why don't y'all think about relocating? And, man, we came down. I applied for a job at St. Francis Hospital on the south side. And they brought me down about 2 or 3 times, man. I was hired as director of recruitment and retention at St. Francis on the south side.
That's dope.
So I ended up spending 8 years at St. Francis. One of the most humbling experiences, man, ever in my life in terms of employment, because I was the first black manager that they had ever seen in Beach Grove. At that time, it was Beach Grove and like around Stop 11. They built that hospital a little bit later. But I mean, you know, growing up in a chocolate city like Gary, man, you didn't have to deal with, you know, a lot of racism unless you went to, you know, the outskirts of Gary. I mean, pretty much. I mean, we grew up, man. It was all black folks. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everybody. I mean, everything was black. You know what I mean? Your doctors,
Right.
your lawyers. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
But I tell you, man, it was definitely an eye opener, man, to move to Indianapolis and to have those experiences, man. Where, man, there would be times, man, I would come home from work, man, and man, I would just be exhausted, man, and I found myself, man, going off on my kids, and my wife and I, we were having problems in our marriage because, you know, man, it was just, I was under a lot of pressure, man. You know, I bought a new house. And so, of course, man, you know, you got this pressure to be a sustainer and to be a provider for your family. But, I mean, you don't know from day to day what's going to happen. You know what I mean? And so, man, I just, you know, I worked through that and end up leaving there after a while. And you know, I mean, that kind of laid the foundation for where we are today, man.
Yeah. And I totally understand, too, because you have to learn how to deal with transgressions that you might not have had to deal with before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And as a black man, you know, we always we taught to fight for every inch of our respect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But you know, through that process, we learn how to maneuver and get to where we need to be. When did you decide to pursue your doctorate for higher education?
Yeah, man. You know, in 2000, let me see. I got my PhD in 2016. In 2012, man, I was working for St. Vincent. So by this time, I had gone to St. Vincent, and I was working for this program called Mickey AHEC, man, where we went into the schools and we would talk to young people about healthcare careers, because there's a major shortage, man, of us who even understand the capacity or the possibilities, man, in healthcare. And so I was going out to different schools and, you know, providing information. So at the time, man, my director of the program, she was working on her PhD, and I was asking her questions about it and stuff, and she was like, you know, you ought to think about doing it too. She said, you're a good writer, you're a good speaker, you understand, you know how to analyze things and come up, you know, conclusions. And I was like, man, I said, I never thought about getting a PhD. But then I thought about going back when I was in Gary, when there was another brother who flunked out of, well, he didn't flunk out, but he got into some trouble at Indiana State. His name is Dr. William Selmer. He's a dentist right now. He's out of Gary, Indiana. And so when I came home and he was home, we met at this place called Dina's, man, on Broadway. Yeah. And we were talking, man. We had some classes and stuff together. There's a book, man, called The Pact. It's some young brothers, man. They got in some trouble or whatever, and they all said that they were going to be doctors one day. And so Will and I, man, we were at Dina's, man. We having a couple of drinks. He said, hey, man, we both going to commit to becoming doctors. And I was like, well, cool, you know. And, man, this dude went on to become a dentist, man. He in this thing, and he calling me consistently saying, hey, man, what you going to do? What you going to do? This is what we said we was going to do. And so he was calling me on a consistent basis, man. I kept giving him excuses. And then one day, man, it was just like the words that I was getting from this executive director who I was working for, and remembering, you know, the commitment that I made, man, to this pact, man, I said, you know what? I'm about to do this. I'm about to do it. And I did it, man. I mean, it wasn't easy. You know, getting a PhD, man, is not easy. But you know what? I started to go back and remember, man, the things that my father taught me. Mm-hmm. And the thing, you know, in that poem called See It Through, that said, you know, you don't quit when things get tough. You keep moving. And so that's been my life, man. I don't, you know, I don't know if you saw we had a podcast showing the other night, man, with me and my sons on Super Speak Sundays. And one of the things my son said, my youngest son, is he said, pressure is a state of mind. Pressure is a state of mind. It's not reality. It's what you think about it. And so I started to just kind of, you know, adjust, man, how I saw the circumstances, and I made it happen.
That's dope. That's dope. I commend you on that, man. We need to stress higher education. That's beautiful, man. That's real. So I want to take you back to the first time from your perspective, because I was
Yeah,
honored to do your podcast, but now you my guest.
yeah.
Talk about our first encounter and when you and I first met, and because we were in Pike Township. I want you to kind of take the lead on that, and then talk
Yeah.
about the formation of, you kind of being my big brother in that relationship. How that developed from your standpoint?
Yeah, man. From my standpoint, it was pretty cool, man. When I first met you, I always felt that you were very. There was no guesswork, I mean, you were a pretty straight shooter, but I knew, I could tell there was something different about you. I mean, you were very like you really want to be involved with the kids, and you really wanted to make sure, man, that hey. No, go back and do that drill. Like everything was like really like I'm intentional about what I'm doing right now, and and I was like, well, man, this brother say from Gary, he's he's a little different, but I can feel his vibe because I don't have to. If we gonna coach together, he's gonna make sure that if the kid try and cheat the drill, ain't no cheating the drill. You're gonna go back and you're gonna go back to the cone, and we're gonna make sure that you get it right. And so I always felt, man, that you were, again, man, you were very genuine. I never had to worry about, if you said something, I mean, that's what you said and that's what you meant. I mean, it wasn't like a hidden agenda. But that's how we grew up in Gary, too. I mean, you didn't have to worry about, if somebody said something, was there something else behind it and all this? I mean, it was a straight shot. And, I mean, I can't remember one time when we didn't disagree, because you always, it seemed like to me, you always yielded to me and said, well, hey, man, if that's what you think, man, we'll do it, But the great thing is that you continue, even if I got out of basketball, I still continue to work with young people, but you continue to study the craft, man, and the craft of basketball and the craft of building, successful teams and things of that nature, man. And I think that it was impactful, man. I mean, you see it all the time, man. Kids gravitate to you, not because you are doing things, man, that will make them, that will validate them doing any wrong, doing anything like that. But they gravitate to you, man, because they know that you're gonna be able to listen, and they know they can come to you, man, in a time of need. And I think that's important.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. It was fun for me too, man, because I was kind of at the Y, and the same qualities from Gary that we had, when I first moved here, it kind of made people intimidated because I didn't really play no games. But you always was a guy to say, nah, you're all right. Hey, come do this. I got this going over here. And then my first independent AAU venture, I still got the flyer on my phone where we did have our own program.
Yeah.
Circle City Stars.
Circle
My
City
son was in
Stars.
first grade. I think your son was in third. Mm-hmm. We had a group of kids. We got the uniforms. We practiced.
Yep.
And I remember going to the first tournaments and getting my head bashed.
Ooh, man. Yeah, man. It's, every dad feels that their child is a dog, that they a beast, and they in the basement working with them and all this, man. But when you go out to some of these tournaments, particularly at an early age like that, man, where these kids, man, have been groomed since they pretty much have come out of the womb, and you show up at a tournament, man, it's like, whoa, like this is like these kids are serious.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, I remember those days, man. Yeah. we got our head banged in many times. But you know what? I think going through that, man, a lot of kids were able to build character, through the loss. Being able to understand that, in life you're gonna lose sometimes. Yeah. And when you lose, it's not, no, you don't lose, you learn.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity to learn when you don't perform the way that you want to, or your outcome is not like you thought it would be. It's an opportunity, man, to reevaluate the situation and do something different. So next time you go out, then you got a different game plan. And I think that we did, man. We many times we evaluated, and again, you were a huge evaluator. Like I said, you've always been, a very critical thinker. You look at situations and be like, okay, we might need to do this. Okay, let's do that next time because, you watching film and stuff at an early age. I'm like, man, I ain't watching no film. My thing was when we coached, man, I just wanted to make sure that the kids felt that they were supported. I was into like building, and you were too. I was like into building like the self-esteem of the kid. And I think a lot of times, man, in basketball, especially early on, man, people get so, the parents and the coaches, man, are the worst. At an early age, man. I mean, everybody thinks their child is, going to be the next Michael Jordan, but you haven't done anything to build the character and self-esteem of this child, man.
Yeah.
You got kids. They might be a dog on the court, but then their grades are terrible in school. What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And I
So-
always was a guy who, my biggest thing was like, I don't care if it was a kid who only played for me at the Y for one season. Back we had 4 players. I was gonna always make you feel important.
Yeah.
I don't care if you made a good pass. Because I felt like at that age, so many men dismiss kids like, oh, he ain't gonna be good. He ain't gonna be.
Right.
So my goal was to just do the opposite and just light a spark in every kid because to me that's what they remember.
Yep.
They don't remember the trophies. They don't remember the wins, but they remember how you treated them, even at a young age. So, that was so important. And I never told you, but it was just so important for you because I had the respect of you because at the time you were established, family man. I was still kind of young, a little wild, but you allowed me to grow and legitimize that program, and I learned so much from there. And every time I ran a team or program after that, I just constantly got better.
Yeah.
So that was like my springboard. That was like my basic training to really, besides the why. Like, we did the why, we dominated that. And then once we had that program, we started going in Fishers and paying for these tournaments. We have fundraisers. And kids would go out to eat. And I'm like, this could really be it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Hey, you ever talked to Rodney? Remember Rodney?
I do remember Rodney. I haven't spoke with him in a while. I think I saw him like a year ago, but yeah, I remember Rodney, man.
Yeah, it was the 3 of us, man. And I remember. I think what made our team so unique, man, was that Rodney. We all brought like a different element to that team, man. Like Rodney was very like I mean, both of y'all were like real calm, but I guess I was probably the most rowdy, like hype.
Yeah.
But Rodney was real. He was real. Like, okay, let's evaluate. Both of y'all were like very like critical thinkers, and I was more, like, hey, rah, let's get excited. Let's go out here and do our thing. Like, I'm not saying that I didn't evaluate things either, but yeah, man, I just think it was a really that triangle, man. That triangle was beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah. We fed off each other, and we were all 3 black men who we didn't mind. Like, we really conversated well. You know what I'm saying? I pride myself on being a great listener, I always try to honor other people's thoughts, regardless of what I may think of them. And so all 3 of us had that quality, so we processed each other information. It was never a time where I felt like my ideas wasn't heard or I didn't hear somebody else's ideas. So
right.
It was just a great springboard, man. I want to transition. I want to ask you, with what we said about our background, and as we got into sports and the athletic side, do you think some of those lessons about perseverance helped our children what they faced when they got to high school and started dealing with like politics and things like that?
Yeah, you know what? I think that, man, when a child's a child, man, they think as a child, but when they become, an adult, I mean, hopefully they don't go too far, man, from what they've learned. And so I would say, man, politics is a whole different, that's a different beast, man, because our kids didn't learn, they didn't see politics. I mean, they saw loss, but they didn't really see politics, man, until, getting into probably middle school or high school, man, where you really saw that, hey, you know what, I might be a better kid, but here's a parent who has a little bit more money, or this parent has a little bit more influence in the community. And so, to answer your question, we talk about politics and perseverance. Yeah, I think that they learn perseverance, but I think it was also a wake up call to be able to deal with things such as politics that they had never experienced before. And so, politics is one of those things, man, where it's hurtful sometimes. But again, I think that we, and again, I don't know where a lot of the kids went, after we coached them. But I know for my own children and the circle who we had around him at that time, we would talk about that often, man. Is that this is when you start dealing with politics, man. This is life. This is life, man. Life is about politics. I don't care if you have a job, if you involved with sports, if you involved with whatever it might be, man. Everything has a political impact. Yeah. So I often tell people to read the book called The Prince by Machiavelli, and it helps us to understand, the how politics work, man, and how kingdoms have been taken over, over time due to the concept of what Machiavelli talked about. And so I think that we have to be, it's not a checker game, man. It's a chess game. We're dealing with any part of politics, man. We have to be able to understand that.
I appreciate that wisdom. That was well said, because it reminds me of what you was just telling me yesterday. Me, I still had that Gary rage. We were taught to fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you always tell me, like, hey, man, a lot of stuff you don't have to respond to. You winning at life. You winning at this. But I guess I've always wanted people to give me what I earn. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And when I don't get that, I never been able to cope with it. But like, big homies like you and John Boy and Ronaldo Blew It, man, y'all constantly in my ear like, you winning.
Yeah.
Stay on path. They want you to break. You know what I mean? Yep. So I just sincerely appreciate that. I want to tell you, man to man, like, I sincerely appreciate that encouragement, because I'm one of them guys. I know I'm intelligent and I know I'm a great friend, but I also got that fire when it gets lit. Yeah. And so it's good to have big homies who see through and see the real me, still see the young John, you know what I mean? Yeah. And still tell me like, hey, bro, I feel you right, but be cool, you good. You know what I mean? You doing your thing. So I've always been blessed for you to, spray that wisdom on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. I try, as I do that, man, not just with you, man, but so many other people, man. I always think about, we can buy all the cars and we can have the biggest house and all that, man. But at the end of the day, man, when you leave this earth, people are not gonna remember what you had. They're gonna remember how you made them feel. And so my goal at this point, man, I'm 54 years old, man. I talk to my children about this as well, and my wife. Man, it's important, man, for me to leave a legacy of making people feel as though they counted in life. But I do that through, my energy. I do it through my podcast. I do it through, when I have my driver's ed students, man. I'm it's about encouraging, man. People will remember that, but they won't remember all the other things, man, that we think are important. Material things are not important, because again, you can't take those things with you when you leave. But what you can leave is a legacy, man, that will live forever, through your children, through people who loved you, and even people who didn't love you, man. If you leave something for people, they will remember.
Yeah, that's deep, man. That's amazing, and it's good. Like, that's how I am. I'm big on. I love being a protector. I love being a leader, but I also love being present. You know what I mean? I love being able to understand, like, you know what, this moment ain't worth my rage or my effort, or you know what I mean? I'm a king. I'm a father. I gotta be here. I'm more valuable here. So everything you spew out, I really soak it in like a sponge, man. I want to ask you. I want to talk. Let's talk about you. You've always been a entrepreneurial spirit. That's the Gary in us. We like having a side hustle that we like to make our main hustle. Right. We love being our own boss. And so let's talk about this driving academy, because when I saw it, as you know, like, I share it all because it's such a brilliant concept.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your driving academy and let's tell people about it.
Yeah. So, man, all of my children, well, two of my boys, James the fourth and Nigel, man, they both went through driver's education with the local company. I'm not gonna mention their name because, this is about what we doing right now. But
Yeah.
they went through this company, man, and we had to wait. And so the state of Indiana says that once a person signs up for driver's education, meaning the driving part, the 6 hours that students spend in the car, the waiting time can be up to 180 days. And so my sons had to wait a long time before they got into the car. So they did the 30 hours of online education, which is required by the state. And so they waiting. So I was like, well, man, I said, let me start working for this company and figuring out why there's such a bottleneck in students getting in the car. Because that's the most important part, is being able to drive the car. And so I worked for them, man, for about 6 months, and I was, just kind of watching things and figuring it out, just kind of doing a little market research. And then I talked to my wife. I said, hey, there's a gap in this industry, and I said, there's a gap that we can fill. And so we went out, man. We started the journey of contacting the state and going through the process of being a certified driving school. And man, June 19th of 2023. We launched Circle City Driving Academy. And I tell you, man, once we launched it, the floodgates opened. I mean, people started to hear, even now, people are like, wow, man, this is a great concept. People who had signed up for other companies to drive who are waiting these 180 or 90 days, they're coming to us and say, well, we're going to get a refund over here and we're going to come drive with you. And so if people go to Circle City Driving Academy on Google, man, they can go to our website. You can read, some of our reviews, man. I've always been a teacher, man, but it takes a very special person to sit in the car with a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old man in a car and teach them how to drive. One of the things that are required when you have a driver's education school is you have to have a passenger side brake in the vehicle. So we do have that. All of our vehicles have been equipped and validated through the state of Indiana, man. And so we just want to welcome parents to visit our website, www.circlecitydrivingacademy.com, and they can learn a little bit about what we do, man, and how we do it.
That's amazing. That's amazing, man. Just the brilliance of, taking a need and turning it into a business. That's the genius in it for me, man. That's how I roll. I commend you on that. I wish you the best on that. And then I also want to ask you, because we talk about this a lot off the record, how's the podcast going?
Man, the podcast is going well. I was, as you probably know, and I thank you, man, for, every now and then you just, hey, man, what you doing with the podcast? You doing the podcast? So I had gone strong for a while, but then I took a little hiatus, man, because I was trying to launch the driving school and things of that nature. So I kind of went underground a little bit. But man, we recently, in the last 3 weeks, man, we're back on. And man, I tell you, I went through and kind of reevaluated some of my titles, and just kind of put some hashtags in my stuff, man. And so, hey, man, it's going well, man. I don't do this for likes or for, publicity, man. Again, this is about legacy, leaving some type of legacy, but also, man, being able to educate people, man. If you go on to our podcast, I mean, most of the topics, man, that we talk about, man, about, we highlight extraordinary people who've gone on to do extraordinary things. And so we want to highlight, people, man, who have, maybe been in the mud at some point, but then they've been able to come out of the mud and they're doing great things, man. And so, this, man, I was happy to interview you, on my podcast, man, because I've just been so inspired by your journey, man, and the things that you've done. And it just makes a difference, man. People need to hear your story.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Me, I was so, like, I love what you was doing, especially the early stuff. And when I saw you, I'm I'm not somebody just be like, oh, you let it go. I'm like, hey man, come on, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You
I
definitely
need
said
you in
that.
this space. Like
Yeah,
you're brilliant at what you do. Like
yeah,
I'm that homie. Like bro, will you? Hey, find an hour, find 15
yeah.
minutes. Like give
You
me
did, you
something.
did, you
Yeah, give
did,
me something. We need you out here. Like
you did,
don't.
you did.
I know you're doing the driving, and that's very important. But that 15, 20 minutes where you sit down, relaxing, you can be
Yep.
interviewing somebody. Because I'm the same way. Like I don't do this for popularity. I don't do it for likes. I just do it if I find one person that's motivated by what I said, I've done my job. You
That's
know what I
it.
mean?
That's it.
All this is worth it. Like I just do it to leave a legacy. And I also sometimes feel like, man, I joke with JJ and I said, man, my grandson could watch this in 20 years and be like, man, my
That's it.
granddaddy was a hell of a dude. You know
That's
what I
it.
mean?
That's
Like,
it. That's it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that's the family name. I want to carry that
That's
on.
right.
Like
That's right.
I'm basically leaving a digital photo album for for the ancestors coming behind me.
That's it,
You
man.
know what I
That's,
mean?
that's, that's called legacy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the legacy. So it's like I want them to know what I endured as a father, as a coach, what I went through as far as my doing my bid and just the type of people I'm embraced by. So, we motivate each other because I'm
That's
like,
it.
I gotta get my homies on here and let the world know why they important to me. So I just think that recycling the energy is just always positive, man, when your spirit is right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt.
We've
I
always
agree,
had
man.
that.
I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I'm just a guy from Gary, Indiana, man. I mean, there's so much negative publicity, man. When you talk about Gary and being the murder capital of the world, it's at the time. But there's some great product of people, man, who come out of Gary, Indiana. Most times people say Michael Jackson, but I mean, you talk about people, man, who are who may not get the publicity of a Michael Jackson, but who are very successful people, man. And I just, I'm just happy to be able to give people a different look when it comes to Gary, man. We don't have to, we don't have to portray ourselves as being, fulfill this thing of, man, we're this and we're that. Man, we can be entrepreneurs, man. We can be successful businessmen. We can be, social entrepreneurs, man. There's so many opportunities out here. And man, I just want to encourage, man, young brothers who are on the brink, man, of trying to decide what direction they're moving, that you can be anything you want to be, man. I mean, you don't have to go to college. I have the highest degree that you can ever get, but I mean, I would tell anybody, man, college, you don't have to go to college. I mean, you can get you a trade, man. Be a plumber, man. Be an electrician. Be a photographer. I mean, there's so many different things to do. But again, you have to be able to look inside, man, to determine like what that means for you, and what it means, and not only just for you right now, man. What does it mean for the generations that are coming behind you? Because unfortunately, man, what we do right now has an impact on two or three generations behind us. And so,
Amen.
as a black man, we have to decide what does that mean for us, and how important it is, man. Are we being selfish right now, and we don't really care about the next two generations, or do we care, but we just don't have the tools or the knowledge to be able to make those decisions to change the complexity of our lives at this point?
I want to finish up with this. This is something I often think about a lot. Like, I made a post and I said, it's really a good feeling, especially for me, knowing my story, but any man, especially a black man from Gary, to look back 20, 25 years on your life and be like, hey, I raised these kids, I gave this to this community. So when you always talk about how blessed you are to be here, how good of a feeling is that from that time you walked in that with them slacks on and that guy gave you truck 32
Yeah.
to the fact that now you got a son in college, you got a daughter handling business, you got another son getting ready to go to college. That's such a priceless feeling. I couldn't imagine not having it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's, man, a lot of times, like I said, I'm 54 now, man, but when I was in my 20s and my 30s, man, I didn't know what today was going to be, but I knew that, again, man, when you think about building, you think about a brick mason, man, or a construction company, man, when they build a house, man, they build it on a strong foundation. And that foundation is built in such a way where when rain comes or wind or any type of thing that can destroy it comes, that it won't be moved. And so I knew that, man, my foundation had to be strong, just as my father gave me, man. I had to help my sons build, and my daughter to build their foundations. And so, man, now, you start to see that, hey, winds have come, rains have come and storms, but they haven't been shaken. And so, man, I would encourage, parents, man. Parents have such a awesome responsibility, but, sometimes when we get to the point where parents are, being friends with, and I'm not saying you can't have a relationship with your child, but, man, if you're smoking weed with your kids and, there are no boundaries, then that becomes a problem, man. I mean, that means the foundation is being compromised.
Yeah.
And so foundational building, man, is important.
Yeah.
And that looks a lot of different ways, man, as it relates to making sure that it's there and it's gonna be sustainable.
And I want to tell any young father watching this, like, for me, I had some wars with my son, like, because I was not gonna be that buddy parent. I was your buddy in the fact that I had your back. I was gonna give you every resource you need, but I also was very strict in the respect I demanded and the effort I demanded, not just in sports, but as far as chores, discipline, because I knew I was raising a black young man in this society. Mm-hmm. I talked to him about how to deal with police, how to keep his body together, how to keep his mind together, how to respect women. Yep. So it's so much more to this fatherhood. It's like watering a plant, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing, beautiful feeling. I appreciate it. So before I go, I want to first tell you thank you. I appreciate you for taking the time. And I also want you to tell anybody in my audience where they can find your podcast, and then also give them the Drivers Academy website one more time, please.
Okay, all right. Yeah, my podcast is at James the Orator, JamesTheOrator. So James the Orator. You can find us there on YouTube. We're on Facebook. And then our Driving Academy, if you have a child who's 15 years old and you want them to learn how to drive, please go to www.circlecitydrivingacademy.com. Again, www.circlecitydrivingacademy.com. Or you can give me a call at 317-401-8000. 317-401-8000. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have about driver's education.
That's dope, boy. You made that sound like an Empire commercial, bro. You know what you're doing.
Empire, you know what I mean? No, man, I just, look, again, I just want to help people, man. And sometimes, particularly, when you talk about driver's education in the black community, man, we don't, we Uncle Junior gonna teach them how to drive and all this, but people don't know if you enroll in driver's education, your child can get their license when they get 16 in 3 months, as opposed to 16 in 9 months if they don't go through driver's education. So there's some benefits, man. There's some benefits in terms of reducing your car insurance. I mean, people don't know these things, and so I'm so grateful that you've allowed a platform for me to be able to discuss that, man, because I think it's important.
No, definitely, man. I hold you in the highest esteem. You know that. I like to do this at least once a month. I know things start happening. We both be moving around, but at least once a month we need to check in with each other a couple of times a month. And I also got some bigger visions. I talk about offline, but I just want to humbly thank you, appreciate you for always being a big homie. Yeah. Being a friend and being able to accept me, and then being able to call me and say, "Hey, man, shake these dudes off, man. They not you, bro. You living good. Like you told me last night, you win by how you living. You know what I mean? You don't have to tell them you winning. Without me having parents, having big homies, it's like side voices. You know what I mean? So to be able to say, man, you can let it go, bro. You beat the adversity. So I'm always grateful for that. I appreciate that. And so I just want to acknowledge that publicly, man, just to say I appreciate you. And I thank you for taking the time to come on and be with me.
No, man, thanks for having me, man. Like I said, I'm happy we got a chance to connect finally. It's been, You know, it's kind of been hit or miss. We said we were going to do this, so now, you know, we have to live in the current moment, man. We have to live in the present moment. We can't worry about tomorrow. You know, my father always told me, he said, people who worry about the past are depressed. The people who worry about the future are man, I'm going blank here, man. They're anxious, and so if we live in the present moment, man, we don't have to worry about what's coming or what happened in the past, man. We have to live in this, like the prayer says, give us this day. You know what I mean, give us this day, you know, our daily bread. So we talk about this day. That means that we need to live for right now. I'm not saying that we shouldn't plan for retirement or save money. I'm not saying that, but we can't look too far in the future, because you know what, man, our lives have already been, you know, commissioned, man, and it's already been designed. And we just got to find our lane and walk in our purpose.
Amen. Man, our grandson's going to have a great time with this one, boy, I promise.
Man, who you telling? Who you telling? I'm excited, man. I appreciate you again. I can't thank you enough, man, for the opportunity. You know, I find myself, you know, interviewing people all the time, but I don't get a chance to get in this space, man. So this feels good to be able to not have to, you know, be the interviewer, but be the interviewee, man. So it's been good. I appreciate you.
Yeah, it's really good for me, you know, I interview people, ain't too many of them been, you know, outside of Toy, you know, and Troy, most of them ain't been from Gary, but it's also good to hear you on the other side of the microphone, like tell your story and tell like that story about Ball State. Like somebody's gonna hear that, because a lot of college kids watch me.
Right.
Somebody's gonna hear that and get inspired. So like for me, I just think it's a beautiful thing, and I don't take it lightly. I don't tread lightly with it. I don't play with it. You know, to me, it's just a beautiful thing. So again, I thank you, man. I want my listeners to go support. Your listeners come support. And y'all going to be seeing this thing a lot more frequently. I give you my word, Lord willing, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, you have a great night, sir. And I appreciate you, man.
All right. Take care of yourself.
Yes, sir. Thank you for watching this entire video. I am Sauce McKenzie, SAUC_McKenzie, MACKENZIE. Check out our new website, wedon'tmiss.org. Check out all my new concretegeniusmedia.com paraphernalia. We appreciate you. God bless. See you soon.